Hayward inbounds it to Booker, who tapped it up and in. Oh my goodness, what a play! Booker on his back to the basket from 8 feet out. The pass came to him. He volleyballed it up with two hands and it went into the hoop.
This is Dante and we are ready to tip it off. Are you? Let's do this.
Hello, welcome to Tip Off back in the fine state of Utah for a quick edition today. We'll do a quick NBA 5, a misspeak by David Blatt about Kevin Love, or was it? Great piece by Kevin Pelton as well, and a quick look at the improved Jazz and the impact of Rudy Gobert. It's all coming up on today's edition of Tip Off. I got to get the kids to school this morning, so this will be a little bit of a short edition. And I had the computer fixed, so I just kind of had some setup things this morning and probably need to wake up at 5:30 and didn't feel like doing that. So I didn't. Sorry, my bad. Didn't realize I actually had to. Probably would have. All right, let's get right to it. No storytelling. NBA 5 time.
This is Alec Burks, and you're Locked On Jazz.
Jeff Green deal is going to get done today. Memphis is going to acquire Jeff Green. This is the best pickup anybody's made in any of the offseason deals. Rajon Rondo, Josh Smith, Corey, any of them. Jeff deal to Green to Memphis is a deal changer. Should really propel Memphis solidly into the top 4, maybe into the top 2 of the Western Conference. To lose Tayshaun Prince, I think, is going to turn out to be a very little factor to them. It obviously took a lot of variations to get this deal done. It will finally get done, but the important piece is Jeff Green, and the reason is he uses a possession well above average. Everything else we've had so far in these deals have been inefficient offensive players going to teams that are banking on the fact they're going to become more efficient when they get there. That doesn't usually happen, and so I think that that's a little bit of a tough gamble that a lot of people are banking on that it's going to take place with Jeff Green. With just run down the list, you got it. And I would have to say that I think this one's a deal changer. This one moves Memphis into a different level. I also love Phoenix acquiring Brendan Wright, but I'm not sure that they have enough firepower to get in the playoffs unless Dallas, who has just not beat anybody any good all season long, falls on, or whatever happened last night with the Clippers losing by 14 at home to Miami, continues to be serious. There's real rumblings about the Clippers that they simply don't get along. It's been an interesting year. Lots of early trades. Trade deadline should be pretty quiet. These have all been very significant trades that have going to alter the land. Everybody's really amped it up a little bit more along the way and picked up pieces that they think are really going to help them. I mean, 25, 30-minute night pieces with Rondo and Smith and others on these rosters. So interesting to see what happens. Portland may have to answer now. So there's a lot of different pieces out there, though some of these teams probably shouldn't. The Warriors shouldn't do anything. Portland maybe shouldn't do anything. Atlanta last night, home against Washington. Other than Toronto, I mean, that's 1-2 in the East. It's not close. 120-89. The Hawks have won 8 in a row. This is ridiculous. And John Wall played, Bradley Beal played, and there's just a subtlety to what they're doing that we've got to buy into. They had 8 guys. They had 8 guys in double figures last night. And that's the subtlety to what they're doing. David Blatt, with an interesting comment after the game the other night, said, reporter said both Kyrie and Kevin are maxed, and David Blatt quickly says, well, Kevin's not maxed yet. Who knows what that means? Cleveland is a disaster. They lost by 20 to Sacramento. LeBron could be back as early as Tuesday. Interesting to see how stubborn Cleveland is with Blatt. I don't think it's his fault, but I think the whole thing's a mess. One of the more interesting pieces I've seen Kevin Pelton do recently, in the Timothy Mozgov deal to Cleveland, the Nuggets got 2 first-round picks. They're protected. So he actually went through a simulator and ran the simulator 1,000 times for the remainder of the season of whether or not Denver actually gets the pick. One of them is Oklahoma City, top 18 protected. If Oklahoma City makes the playoffs and keeps the pick, Oklahoma City made the playoffs and kept the pick just 7% of the time. Thunder missed the playoffs an additional 16% of the time, meaning Denver gets the pick 77% of the simulations, most commonly between 19 and 21. The other pick from Memphis only goes to Nuggets if it falls between 6 and 14. That means the Grizzlies would have to miss the playoffs, which is not inconceivable. It happens 7.5% of the simulations. Still, the odds are long that Denver will get both picks. So likely they get the Oklahoma City pick, not likely to get the Memphis pick. I thought that was well done by Kevin. Excuse me, to be able to do that.
Hi, this is Trevor Booker. I want to hear from you. Call 801-200-3738 and ask me a question. That is 801-200-3738 to ask me a question.
He did that. He made that shot the other night. It was ridiculous. That is crazy the other night when he made that shot. How awesome was that? And how fun for everyone involved in a great game. The Oklahoma City game on Friday night was as good a regular season game, high tempo. I was just hammered after calling it. Can't imagine what the players were like, and you could see that with a complete lack of mind-body connection in Houston. 31 turnovers is an incredible number. Hard to believe that they did that, but it happens. I think that's clearly a sign of exhaustion, and I think you have to understand a little bit that while we're greatly better, and I'll get into how much better we are, it's still taking a yeoman effort, huge big-time effort for our guys to go head-to-head with Chicago, head-to-head with Oklahoma City, that occasionally we're going to come out empty without anything in the tank. And what you're going to see is if the really good teams can go out and have games where they don't, well, frankly, the really good teams aren't putting out the energy that our guys are putting out to try to, win games on the road against Chicago and Oklahoma City right now. I mean, it's just the margin of error on this team is still slim, and for them to play and win some of these games, they've got to be just so good and so intense and so focused. It's going to wear them out. And I think we're going to see more of the games like Houston where the effort is there and the connection is not there as we head down the road here. The other one is that, Quinn works these guys hard, really hard, mentally. Hour plus film sessions, long practices, during practicing, and that simplifies it too much. He tests them, he's working them, he wants them to develop their mental skill. He believes that he can develop mentally some mental strength to them, almost some intellectual strength, so that in practices it's not just running through stuff. It's him calling out a 4-sequence play that they have to try to remember what all the parts are and then get to them, and it's him integrating. You've got to be really sharp at all times. Playing with pace has as much to do as practicing with pace. So therefore, I think these things are all good, but there is a flip side to them, which is that as these guys are going through this process and developing these skills, there's going to be some dead nights. This team is so much better, though. 7-6 in the last 13. Just gets to be a good sample size, right? Early on you could say on the sample size, well, it includes Philadelphia and includes Minnesota twice. Okay, well, it also includes the Clippers and Atlanta and Chicago and Oklahoma City and Houston. I don't think I have it taken back as far as Washington and New Orleans. I could. That'd be 15. Take it back to the road trip, and then we'd be 8 and 7. Fine. But nonetheless, in that time period, our offensive rating is 103.1, which is 15th best in the NBA over that time period. Our defensive rating is 100.6, which is 8th best. 100 is kind of the magic number. We've become the 6th best team in effective field goal percentage defense, which is singularly the most important defensive statistic there is. We're the 2nd best offensive rebounding team, which is interesting because I'm not sure that was our intention. I think that's what our personnel has done, and I think that it will, hopefully teams have to deal with that, and we can get a little bit better at transition defense. We're allowing 12.5 points in transition defense a game. Can you get that down to 11? Can you get it down to 10? It's subtle, but as you get good defensively, the changes you're trying to make or the areas where you're trying to improve become subtle because to get from 8th defensively onward those are difficult numbers to start to reduce down. You're not going to reduce down huge amounts. The best in the NBA at opponents' fast break points is down at around 10. It's Boston at 10.3, then Atlanta and Milwaukee at 10.7. We're at 12 for the season. Huge, because we were last in the league last year. Can we get that down? Can we get into the top 6, 7, 8 there? That would be a nice little change if we can. Rudy Gobert is a huge part of this, but I think we're underselling it a little bit if we think it's only Rudy Gobert. If you look at actually some of the statistics over the last 13 games, and you look at some of the statistics over the most recent period of time, the defense is good, not as good. I mean, Rudy on the floor, Rudy's special. And this is incredibly exciting that the Jazz have Rudy Gobert because he changes who the team is. But the defense is, actually, frankly, over the last 3 games, including Chicago, the defense is better when Rudy's on the bench. I think that's an outlier. But it's relevant, actually. It's still taking some time here in this process. And the Rudy is terrific. Rudy is terrific. He's a game changer. Could be a franchise changer. It's not all the way there yet. He is still a second-year player who did not play very many minutes last year, who did not play a lot of minutes in Europe. There's still huge growth that needs to be done. We're going to get sucked in a little bit on because of the amount of highlights and Gobert land and all that thing. But, I mean, over this 13-game period where the Jazz are 7-6, with Gobert on the floor, the defense is a 99.9. But with him on the bench, it's a 101.4. And the minutes are 344 with him on, 280 with him off. Right? So the defense overall is greatly improved. It's at a 101.4 when he's on the bench. The team over this 13 period of time, as much as Gobert land has everyone incredibly excited, which it should, is much better when Rudy's on the bench. The per 100 possession rating when Rudy's on the bench is +8. The per 100 possession when Rudy's on the floor is -2. So just remember that. Like, it's a process. Don't misunderstand this. It's not like I'm saying it's not going to work, but it's a process. When Rudy's on the floor, we still turn the ball over 20% of the time offensively. Okay, we got to learn how to play together. When the assist rate, the turnover rate is obviously related, is terrible. The defensive rebounding numbers, remember when that was an issue for Rudy? Still not. We're a better defensive rebounding team when Rudy's off the floor in the last 13 games. When he's played great. Huge game changer. But teams are beginning to adjust. When Rudy's on the court, they shoot 66% in the restricted area. When Rudy's off the court, they shoot 66% in the restricted area in the last 13 games. When Rudy's on the court, they shoot 31.9% of their shots in the restricted area. When Rudy's off the floor, they shoot 31.2% of their shots in the restricted area. Teams are adjusting. I mean, frankly, the Rudy effect defensively in the last 13 games is getting close to negligible. It's 1.5 points per 100 possessions. That's good. But the offense effect is 12 points per 100 points possession the wrong way. Still a lot of work that has to be done. It also, by the way, means that Kanter returning to full strength here is not a no-brainer where he goes. Right? I mean, I think the fan base thinks this is a complete no-brainer that Kanter doesn't start. I actually would take it the other way. Kanter might start. And Rudy comes off the bench, and then we work through the rotations and see if it works. Kanter was playing really well before he went out. But again, when Kanter's been on the floor at times with the starting lineup, I think we're about a -1. It's not bad for who we are. That's really what we are. We're about a negative. Our team average for the season, if we're about the 20th best team in the league, would probably be about a -1.5, -2. So we'll see, but it makes it interesting. All right, I've got about a minute or two. Do I have any questions? I do. David, I've heard you say several times that you don't know what kind of player Enes Kanter is going to be. May I suggest a young Al Jefferson? Yeah, I think they're a little different, but you can suggest it. It's probably as good as anything else. Not particularly vertically athletic. Big, good rebounder, can score. Sure. If Enes was playing 35 minutes a night on a terrible team, he'd probably put up 20 and 10 like Al did early in his career. Maybe. It's decent. Then you got to figure out what you do with it. I think Enes actually has more to his offensive game, versatility-wise. How has Slow-Mo Joe's Aussie attitude been accepted around the team? One of my favorite moments recent road trip was in the games with the free throw being taken, watching Joe talk to Quinn with Joe having his arm around, sort of leaning on him. You know, Joe talks in practice a great deal. He's really a fabulous communicator, veteran, understands what's going on, helps out the players a great deal. He does a lot of those things. He does, a lot of those kind of things I think are really helpful to the team. He's also a fun-loving, good guy, always a character. I mean, that's his Australian element, right? So we know he's a very valuable team guy. He's got to make some shots. He's one of his last, unless he hit one the other night, he's like one of his last 13 from 3, so he's got to knock some down. Elijah Millsap and Williams playing bigger minutes versus the Rockets. I'm sure mostly was because the rest of the team, especially Dante, played tired, but partially to find out what we have to see if we want to keep them about. More, I think, it was because the rest of the team was awful. I mean, Dante really hit, man. He became a roadrunner, smack into that wall that night. That was, woo. I mean, you almost had to take him out for his own benefit. He airballed a free throw and missed a 3 by 10 feet, and then threw a ball. I mean, it was interesting. There's a young writer who I respect, so I'm not going to mention his name because I want to throw him under the bus during this, who, I saw tweeted out, I don't care if he was bad, we still have to play him in the fourth quarter. I mean, holy smokes. You weren't watching. I mean, Dante, that was awful. Okay, it happens. It's fine, it happens. But don't, demand he plays the fourth quarter when he looked like a 7th grader playing with varsity. I mean, he had to be exhausted or something. Or just couldn't mentally get engaged. It happens. It's part of the process for him. 39 games into a long NBA season. He probably has never played 39 games in 2 years. Maybe he has 2 years. So he's exhausted. And 3 games in 4 nights against real teams. And Pat Beverly got in on him. And he couldn't handle it. And okay, get him out of there. And if nothing else, he's got to understand that if he's that awful, he doesn't play. That's got to be a part of it too. All right, that is tip-off today. Hope you have a good one. See you.